Hello guys, and welcome back to our channel. Now, if you watched President Biden's farewell speech, you will know that it really ignited a firestorm of debate on social media. And today we will be taking a look into the heart of the controversy. Now, Biden's stark warning about an emerging oligarchy of ultra wealthy in America has left many wondering if the country is indeed on the brink of a crisis. In his speech, Biden emphasized that this oligarchy, fueled by extreme wealth, power, and influence, poses a significant threat to America's democracy, basic rights, and freedoms. Now, he urged citizens to take action, drawing parallels with the past when Americans stood up against the robber barons and fought for workers' rights. As Biden so eloquently put it, the American people have been down this path before, and it's time to take a stand again. But what does this mean for the future of America? Is an oligarchy already entrenched, with the wealthy elite pulling the strings? Or is there still time to create a more equitable society? So join me as we explore the reactions pouring in from different people, from those who vow to stop facilitating the growth of this oligarchy to those who believe it's been a reality for decades. So with that said, let's take a look at these videos. I will be right back.
An oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America, and we've seen it before. More than a century ago, but the American people stood up to the robber barons back then and busted the trusts. They didn't punish the wealthy, just made the wealthy play by the rules everybody else had to. Workers want rights to earn their fair share. You know, they were dealt into the deal, and it helped put us on a path to building the largest middle class, the most prosperous century any nation in the world has ever seen. We've got to do that again.
So Google searches for the word oligarchy skyrocketed after Joe Biden called out the fact that Donald Trump and his team of billionaires are forming an oligarchy during his farewell speech last night. This is according to a CNN reporter who says not only did the word oligarchy spike in searches, but people were asking what that word meant. Let's give this a read. Quote, Google searches for oligarchy spiked last night when Biden warned that an oligarchy is taking shape in America. The top search was simply, what is an oligarchy? And many of the other searches were also asking for definitions. An oligarchy is when a small group of people have control of the government, which is an accurate description of what we're about to have in America in 4 days. It's Donald Trump and his billionaire large donor Elon Musk, along with the other big tech CEOs who we have all seen bend the knee to Trump since he won the election. So it's good to see that Biden is raising awareness for what the word oligarchy means. It's crazy that Americans did not know what it means, but that probably explains why they just elected an oligarchy.
I don't think a lot of you realize how bad and how concerning things have to be for the President of the United States of America to willingly even say and acknowledge the possibility of an oligarchic state, let alone to warn the American public about an impending oligarchy. Granted, I am Canadian, so I have a little bit of a different perspective here, but my family has been in federal politics for years, and I don't think that the average person understands the severity of this. Politicians don't want to be honest with you. Politicians don't want you to know things because that's how they remain powerful. So for the president to fully come out and acknowledge a state that isn't democracy, we're cooked. This is your reminder to get organized and invest in community.
Do y'all remember when Facebook was under fire because if you put your finger on your screen and you moved your screen for Facebook a little bit, there was this little sliver of what your camera was viewing? Do y'all remember that? I do, but y'all are worried about TikTok?
There's been a lot of people asking me what I've been doing to rebel against this oligarchy that's formed here in America. So our greatest powers are our labor and how we spend our money, as well as our collective voice. So number one thing for me is that I'm stopped spending money in ways that facilitate the growth of this oligarchy. I've been on this train for a minute, but now in 2025, that means to me cutting non-essential spending almost entirely. And what I do spend, I'm going to give to local small businesses. And if I do have to spend money with corporations, then I'll choose based on their ethics. So for example, our grocery expense is our biggest thing, most people. So I shop at Aldi, Trader Joe's, and Costco primarily. And I'm also trying to pay things in cash as much as possible to keep down on banks collecting fees. I'm going to make my garden twice the size this year. I'm raising more animals for personal consumption, and I'm going to start hunting more, which I know not everybody has the opportunity to do. However, most of us do live somewhere that we can support a local farmer by buying directly from them. So try to do that and grow any little bit of food that you can, like call it your resistance garden. So I'm also making a great effort to barter with other people more to cut the system out entirely, which is something I've been on for a long time. I mean, we're a consumer-based society, so if we stop consuming, the first ones that are going to get hit are the major corporations, and every spending choice matters. The only language that these people speak is money. And regardless of what happens to this app, I'm going to keep speaking out against what's happening to our country, because the people's voice is powerful, and we have to keep this conversation going. They've already stifled the free press so much, and it's up to us to keep bringing light to the darkness and do whatever we can to revolt against this. So, I don't know, in my mind, I say, remember that they need compliance in order to carry out their bad deeds, and we have more power than they want us to believe, so do not comply, people. Every choice with your money makes a difference.
It's never been red versus blue, left versus right. It's always been up versus down, wealthy versus the working class. In Congress, they have been run by millionaires for decades. They don't care about the regular person. All these problems that we've had for decades, nobody's fixed them. It's always been up versus down. They want to keep you poor. That is how the oligarchy wins. We've been in an oligarchy a long time. So, what can we do? Well, as individuals, nothing. But together, everything. So find a meeting. Working Families Party, Democrats, progressives, get out there. Find a meeting.
Well, it's not even January, and First Lady Trump is already bending the knee. The oligarchy is officially here in America. In case you weren't aware, the government is set to shut down in a couple of days, and basically Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, was set to pass a semi-clean spending bill to make sure that it stayed open until roughly around March. Come last night and a couple of days ago, basically Elon Musk goes on a 70-tweet tirade deciding to say, I'm going to lobby against anyone who supports this bill with my infinite riches. I don't know how we as the everyman combat this kind of influence within our politics. Like, we have our vote, we can try our best to basically say, like, we want to do this and we can run for office. But when someone with literally infinitesimal amounts of wealth can come in and be like, I'm just going to use my money to make sure you don't get elected if you don't pass the thing I want you to pass. And then the president who they helped get elected kind of goes, yeah, I agree. And then that obviously holds a lot of a political opinion. These people will then change their minds and thusly the thing never passes. I don't think we can even collectively pull all of the money we have together to try to combat that influence. I'm honestly just not sure what we do here. And if you guys have any ideas, I would love to hear them.
America's not an oligarchy. We're a democracy. People vote, and that's what matters. People vote, sure, but who do you think politicians listen to more? The voters or the billionaires funding their campaigns? Take big oil, for example. They spend millions lobbying against clean energy policies that most Americans support. That's just politics. Everyone needs money for campaigns. True, but when Amazon gets billions in tax breaks while regular people struggle to pay their taxes, it's clear who's calling the shots. Is that what democracy looks like to you? Big companies work hard and create jobs. Why shouldn't they get something back? Jobs are great, but companies like Walmart and McDonald's pay so little that their employees rely on government assistance. Meanwhile, their CEOs make millions. Is that fair? At least they're not as bad as the government controlling everything. The government doesn't need to control everything, but when billionaires like Elon Musk get massive subsidies for their companies while avoiding taxes, it's clear the system isn't working for regular people. They're not forcing the government to do anything. They're just successful. They're successful at writing the rules. Pharmaceutical companies lobby to keep prices high, even when Americans pay more for the same medications than people in other countries. That's not success. That's exploitation. But people still get to vote. That's what counts. Voting counts, but when candidates are backed by the same corporate donors, what real choice do people have? Look at how Wall Street got bailed out in 2008, but regular homeowners were left to sink. Who does that help? So what do you want? Just take all their money? I want fairer campaign finance laws, like banning corporate donations and making sure billionaires pay their taxes. Until that happens, we don't have a democracy. We have an oligarchy cosplaying as a democracy.
So it's official. We're living under an oligarchy. The definition is when wealthy business leaders have a great deal of political influence and benefit from the privatization of government agencies. And I'm under no delusion that wealthy people have had influence on our politics for a very long time. But now it's official. Now we have a billionaire who was not elected negotiating directly with the Speaker of the House. We have billionaires who are lobbying to privatize the United Postal Service. And make no mistake, Trump ran to stay out of jail, to shut down all of these investigations. He doesn't care about the American people. But the insane billionaire who's calling all the shots right now, he cares. He cares about taking over the American government. He's also looking at Germany and the UK and trying to influence their politics. This man is insane. And right now, he's calling most of the shots on the Republican side. This is dangerous. And we'll just have to see how much worse it gets. Maybe he'll get bored. Maybe he'll burn it all down. We'll see.
I just saw on Instagram that after Biden's speech last night, there was a huge surge in Google searches for the word oligarchy. And it's making me wonder, like, I distinctly remember learning, like, at a very kind of surface level, like what an oligarchy was, like oligarchy, monarchy, republic, democrat, like, you know, like that probably was like 5th grade, you know, and understanding what that meant, and then probably having it be reinforced throughout like the rest of like middle school and high school, just when we would come across learning about countries or cultures that were examples of an oligarchy, for example. And certainly like Googling the word oligarchy does not mean that you don't know what it is or that you didn't learn it. But however, it does make me wonder, like since I've been in school, or like right now, are kids learning these different forms of government like in a slightly different way, where they're maybe like not as familiar with it? Or like, am I just taking for granted maybe like the average person's understanding of what an oligarchy is? And is this just like another example of where people are disempowered through an intentional lack of information? Or maybe the intent isn't to like deny them, like to keep them from understanding what an oligarchy is, but it's just more like as choices are made to prioritize, like what you're going to prioritize in the curriculum, and the consequence of that is other things have to be de-emphasized. You know, I just like firmly believe that like learning about government and like civic education is truly like a civil rights issue. If you don't understand like the beginning and the foundation of our country and your rights as a citizen, then, you know, like you're being disenfranchised in a way.
Despite the absolutely shameful Supreme Court decision, shameful. I don't think TikTok is going anywhere. At this point, there's been enough sort of like chaotic behind the scenes fumbling that tells me that there are big money interests on both sides behind this. Those who want TikTok to stay, aka the 60% ownership that is American on their board. It's enough weird like stumbling around and fumbling that tells me that like they're really trying to figure this out. They're trying to figure out a way that TikTok stays. Also, let's be clear, the Supreme Court did not uphold a ban on TikTok. The Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of a law that allows America to basically demand that a foreign company sell to them or get. And honestly, this was not a surprise. The Supreme Court was always going to uphold it. I think the thing that is a surprise is the unanimity of the decision. You chucklefucks can't get together on absolutely anything else. You can't be unanimous on absolutely anything that actually affects, in fact, harms us Americans, the people you purport to represent, but you can unanimously decide to cut off the free speech and financial opportunity of literally half of America. It's shameful. It is absolutely shameful. That's the only word for it. And you should be ashamed, Supreme Court. You should be ashamed. There has never been a more transparent signal that you are completely bought and paid for. Also that you're completely out of touch with the country, again, that you purport to represent. You have no what's going on. You have no clue what TikTok is. You don't know how to turn up the brightness on phone screens. And the fact that the future of a platform that has been literally the first place where we've all been able to just openly connect without the censorship and filtering of our government with communities around the world, openly get to know each other, openly just like live together as humans, and also create financial opportunities for ourselves that in our current system are completely impossible. We've been able to more equally distribute wealth and opportunity on this app than our government has ever provided. The fact that all of that is now in the hands of that orange, the definition of insult, not injury, and I hate this timeline. That being said, TikTok's not going anywhere. It feels very obvious that there's a lot of big money behind this, kind of swinging things in both directions. Also, Oracle has a huge stake in this, and Oracle is gigantic. You think Meta's big? Oracle's gigantic. So I think TikTok's going to be okay. I think it's going to be weird for a while. I think we're going to get a lot more like cans kicked down the road. I think it's going to be a lot more like playing with our emotions and like biting our nails, waiting for decisions. But I think it's going to be okay in the end.
Now, President Joe Biden, in his Wednesday farewell speech to the nation, warned that American democracy was sliding into an oligarchy of tech billionaires. But what exactly is an oligarchy? In short, an oligarchy is an elite few who control the government's actions. By using the pointedly negative term oligarchy, Biden equated this moment when the world's wealthiest men are feting President-elect Donald Trump with some of history's more brutal regimes. Now, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg is scheduled to co-host a Trump inaugural reception with wealthy Republican donors next week. Amazon Prime Video, which was founded by billionaire Jeff Bezos, got exclusive licensing rights to stream and theatrically release First Lady Melania Trump's new documentary. Meta, Amazon, and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman last month donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration fund. And billionaire Elon Musk's super PAC spent around $200 million to help elect Trump. But Biden made a complicated assertion as both Republicans and Democrats have relied on Silicon Valley fortunes to boost their political ambitions. Now, what are the term's origins? Like many words in politics, oligarchy originates from ancient Greek and quite literally means that few command. But unlike aristocracy, an oligarchy is more closely tied to wealth than nobility and family lineage. Now, the philosopher Aristotle wrote in his book, Politics, that democracy is safer and more free from civil strife than oligarchy. For in oligarchies, two kinds of strife spring up. Faction between different members of the oligarchy and also faction between the oligarchies and the people. Now, multiple countries have been labeled oligarchies by academics. After the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991, former state assets and other institutions came under the control of increasingly wealthy businessmen who became known as billionaire oligarchs. Now, the mix of profits and politics that began under the Russian president Boris Yeltsin gave way to crackdowns by President Vladimir Putin, who has his own favored oligarchs who pledged to let them keep their fortunes so long as they are loyal to him. Now, with its legacy of colonialism and powerful families, the Philippines has been accused of being an oligarchy, with its former president, Rodrigo Duterte, claiming to have dismantled the system. Now, critics said he simply gave preferences to a different set of oligarchs. Apartheid-era South Africa was also seen by some academics as having a palm-color racial oligarchy. Even before Biden's speech, the rising wealthy gap in the United States, as well as in China, raised concerns about whether the world's two largest economies were becoming oligarchies. Now, Biden warned of a tech industrial complex that is bringing an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press, he added, is crumbling. Now, Biden's farewell address, capping half a century in politics, sought to bolster a legacy that has been overshadowed by Democrats' failure to stop the Republican Trump from returning to the White House. Now, Trump, who takes office at noon on Monday, has enlisted billionaire Elon Musk, who helped his election efforts, as a special advisor charged with cutting costs from the federal government. Trump has nominated a slate of cabinet members who have pledged to upend traditional American alliances and governing norms. The November 2024 election left the Democratic Party with little leverage in national politics. Biden ran for president in 2020 as a transition figure, but opted at the unprecedented age of 80 to run for re-election, convinced he was the only Democrat who could beat Trump. Now, forced out of the race in July after a disastrous debate against Trump, Biden has been blamed by some Democrats for their November wipeout after Vice President Kamala Harris' whirlwind campaign lost every battleground state. Now, Biden and his allies oversaw the recovery from COVID-19, funded an infrastructure revival, sparked new semiconductor chips manufacturing, and tackled climate change as they tried to rebalance inequality and invest in the future. He leaves an outperforming U.S. economy and optimistic business. But Biden was unable to heal divisions in the country the way he had hoped or stop Democratic backsliding around the world. Now the Republican president-elect has vowed to undo much of what the Democratic administration accomplished. Now, speaking from the Oval Office, where his family had gathered to watch, he touted his single-term administration's record, referencing job creation, infrastructure spending, healthcare, leading the country out of the pandemic, and making the U.S. a safer country. Now, he added, however, that it would take time to feel the full impact of all we've done together, but the seeds are planted and they will grow and they will bloom for decades to come. Now, Biden wished Donald Trump's incoming administration success, but then issued a series of pointed warnings, with the president stating so much is at stake right now. On climate change, he said powerful forces want to wield their unchecked influence to eliminate the steps we've taken to tackle the climate crisis to serve their own interests for power and profit. On misinformation, Biden warned that Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. Now, he also took a swipe at social media companies such as Meta, which has recently announced it will get rid of independent fact-checkers. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit, Biden said. And his attack on an ultra-wealthy tech industrial complex was a veiled reference at Silicon Valley executions such as Elon Musk, the world's richest man who is close to Trump and provided huge financial backing to his campaign. Now, his language echoed that of President Dwight Eisenhower, who famously warned of a military-industrial complex in his 1961 farewell address. Biden appeared to have Musk in mind when he warned of a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a few ultra-wealthy people. The term oligarchy refers to a government that is run by a handful of people, often for their own gain. The president went on to say there could be dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Now, other tech bosses such as Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg have also made efforts to improve relationships with Trump ahead of his return to the White House. Closing his exit speech, which is a long-standing presidential tradition, Biden called on Americans to stand guard of their country. May you all be the keeper of the flame. His farewell address came on the same day he announced a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, which he referenced in his opening remarks. Biden said the negotiations had been some of the toughest of his career and took credit for helping get the deal over the line. The deal will see a ceasefire take effect on 19th January, a day before Trump is due to take office. The incoming president has also taken credit for the agreement, saying it was only possible because he won the election in November. We have finally come to the end of the video, but what do you, our viewers, have to say? Share your thoughts, your views, your contributions as well in the comment section down below, and let's have a conversation there. Thank you for always watching, and see you in our next video as we bring you another interesting video.